Shalom to all! Today's daf is Rosh Hashanah Daf Chav Daled. We are starting the top line at the 2 dots. And today's daf is sponsored Lilu Nishmas, Maris Miriam Sarah Basar Yaakov Maisha, her neshama should have an aliyah. And Lilu Nishmas, Rabbi Yachmiel Mordechai ben Reb Chaim, his neshama should have an aliyah. And the Mishnah had said that some of the questions that we ask the Eidim, they're coming to give Eidos of Kiddush HaChadesh is Kama HaYagavaya, how high was it in the sky, and Ulayin HaYunaita, which direction was it facing? And really there's a girsa that an earlier part of the Mishnah should really be quoted because the beginning of this Gemara is actually discussing an earlier part of the Mishnah. So one of the questions they asked the Eidim was the moon towards the north or the south? And Tani Chad, we have one price that says let's find out Dvarv Kayamin. If they said that it was towards the north, so then we can listen to them. But L'Draim Alem or Klum, if they said it was towards the south, then we can't pay attention to them. It's obviously false testimony. As the Gemara about Tanya Ibcha, we have a price that says the opposite. L'Draim, if they said it was towards the south, Dvarv Kayamin, then we could pay attention. But let's find if they said it's towards the north, Le'am or Klum, then he didn't say anything. We can't pay attention. The Gemara says Loy Kasha, there's no problem. One's talking about during the summer, one's talking about during the winter, and then it will depend whether or not it makes sense to be north or south. And Tan Rabbanu, we have a brisa. Let's say one of these Eidim said it was 2 mirdais high, Echad Aimer Gimel, and the other one said it was 3 mirdais high. Eidusan Kayam, as their Eidos is valid. Now a mirdas is a cattle prod and was a standard length. So if the discrepancy between their two Eidos was just 1 cattle prod length, so then we can keep their Eidos because it could be that there will be this small discrepancy and that's not a problem. But Echad Aimer Gimel, Echad Aimer Hey, if one of them said that it was 3 cattle prods high, one of them said it was 5 high, then Eidusan Betela, we have to mivato their Eidos because one of them is definitely lying. It's too much of a discrepancy. But we could join one of them with another Eidos. If we have a third witness whose testimony is the same as one of these two, then we can pair them and accept the testimony. And Tan Rabbanan, let's say the Eidim said, Re'inu b'mayim, we saw the moon through the reflection of the water. Re'inu b'ashashes, we saw it through a lantern. Re'inu ba'avim, we saw it through the clouds. And me'id and olive, they're not able to give Eidos on that because that's not a clear vision. Chetzi b'mayim, if they said we saw half its reflection in the water, Chetzi ba'avim, half of it through the clouds, Chetzi b'ashashes, half of it through a lantern, and me'id and olive, they're not able to give Eidos on it either. The Gemara asks, Hashta kuli amrit loy, Chetzi mibaya, if you telling me that they saw the entire thing through the reflection of the water, let's say, we can't accept their testimony. So of course if they saw only half of it through the water, of course we can't accept their testimony. What's the chiddush? So Gemara says, this is what we mean to say. If they saw half of the reflection through the water and the other half they saw actually in the sky. Half of it they saw through clouds and half of it they actually saw clearly in the sky. Half of it was seen through a lantern, half of it was seen clearly in the sky. And me'idin, they still cannot give Eidos. And Tan Rabbanan, we have a brisa, renew v'shuv renew. Let's say they said, we saw the moon and then we didn't see it anymore. We looked for it but we couldn't find it. And me'idin all of they cannot give Eidos. The Gemara asks, Kol hachi chazu lava azli. Does that mean that the moon has to constantly be visible? They have to be able to see it for a very long period of time? How does that make sense? If they saw the moon, they saw the moon. So Rabbi, he answers, hachi kamar, this is what they're saying. Re'inu me'elenu. We saw it, but we just kind of caught a glimpse of it. We weren't looking for it. We caught it in, let's say, our peripheral vision. And then v'shavnu l'rosa mitatenu. We went back and we decided we're going to take a good look at the moon and we want to see what it looks like. V'le'renu, and then we couldn't find it. And me'idin all of they're not allowed to give Eidos on that. And my time, why is that? If they saw the moon, they saw the moon. The answer is Amar Kuvisa the Eva Ba'alma the Chazi, they just saw a sliver of cloud. Since they just caught in their peripheral vision, they weren't really looking for the moon. It's possible that all they saw was a sliver of cloud because they weren't able to find the moon afterwards, and therefore we can't accept their testimony. And now the Mishnah describes what happened after we accepted these Eidim, and we finally have the ability to Mekadesh l'Chaydesh. Rosh Bezdin Omer, the Rosh Bezdin said, Mekadesh, it is Mekadesh, it is sanctified. And everyone would answer after him in Mekadesh, Mekadesh. And Ben Shinir Bizmani, Ben Shalonir Bizmani Mekachin, say, whether it was seen in its proper time, meaning after 29 days, or even not in its proper time, after 30 days, we're going to be Mekadesh it, we're going to call out Mekadesh. Now, Rabbi Tzadok, he says, if it wasn't seen in its proper time, and Mekachin, I say, we don't have to be Mekadesh it, Shekvar Kichua Shemaim, because Shemaim was already Mekadesh it. By us seeing the moon a day later, clearly was already Mekadesh it. We don't have to announce it as Mekadesh because we know when Rosh Chodesh is. And the Mishnah said, Rosh Bezdin, he says Mekadesh, Menanimili, how do we know that? Amar Chia Bar Gamda, Amar Yesi Ben Shaul, Amar Rabbi, Amar Kra, the Pasuk says, Vayidaber Moshe es Mayadei Hashem. Moshe speaks over the Mayadim of Hashem. Mikan, we learn from here, Shorosh Bezdin, Amar Kodesh. The Rosh Bezdin says Mekadesh. Moshe was the Rosh Bezdin, and the word Vayidaber over here means not just that he tells it over to them, is that he officially says Mekadesh. And V'cholam Ein Nachrav Mekadesh Mekadesh. Everyone else answers Mekadesh Mekadesh. Minolan, how do we know that everyone is supposed to answer? Now, Amar Papa, he answers Amar Kra. The pasuk tells us, Asher Tekru Roisam, you shall call them. Speaking about the Yom Tovim, Kri Bey, we could actually read the pasuk as Atem, and namely, we could read it as Asher Tekru Atem. How is that possible? There's actually no vav in the pasuk, so we could read it as Aleph Saf Mem Atem. You plural shall call it, and you shall respond Mekadesh Mekadesh. Now, Nachum Yitzchak Amar, he says it's a different pasuk. Elehem Mayadai, and the way we're understanding the pasuk is Haim Yomru Mayadai. They say that these are Mayadim, meaning they respond Mekadesh Mekadesh. Now the Gemara asks Mekadesh Mekadesh Trezim Nilamali. How do we know that they're supposed to respond twice Mekadesh Mekadesh? Maybe they only respond once. So we say the Chsiv because the pasuk says Mikra'e Kaidesh, callings of Kaidesh, declarations of Kaidesh, meaning we have plural callings, which is a minimum of 2. And Rabbi Tzadok Geimer, he had said, if it wasn't seen in its proper time, then we're not Mekadesh it. Now Tanya Plima Amar, he says the other way around. If it was seen in its proper time, we don't need to be Mekadesh it. That's because we don't need to Mechazek the fact that Rosh Chodesh is in its proper time. But Shaloi Bezmani Mekadesh, if it was seen not in its proper time after 30 days, then we have to Mekadesh it, because since it's considered not in its proper time, we have to be Mechazek that this is when Rosh Chodesh is, and then we say Mekadesh. Now Reb Shimon Aimer, he says, Ben Kach Ben Kach Mekadesh, we're never Mekadesh it. We never say Mekadesh. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, V'kidashtem es shnas hachamishim, and you shall sanctify the 50th year. This is referring to Yovel. Shanim ata Mekadesh, you shall be Mekadesh years, but V'iyata Mekadesh Chodashim, you're not Mekadesh months. So when it's a new month, you don't say Mekadesh, it just is a new month. We'll establish Rosh Chodesh, but we won't say Mekadesh. And Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, he says, Halacha Reb Elazar Bar Tzadok, the halacha is like Reb Elazar Bar Tzadok, that we will not announce Mekadesh when it's a late month. And Amar Bai, he says, Afanana Mitanina, we actually learned that in the Mishnah. Ru Bezin B'chol Yisrael. Let's say Bezin and all of Klal Yisrael saw the new moon. So everyone saw the new moon. Nechru Eidim, they asked all the Eidim the questions, and V'lahi speak Ulayim Mekadesh. They just didn't have enough time to say Mekadesh until it got dark. Harez Ma'uber. So now it's an extended month. And what do we learn from here? Ma'uber in Mekadesh Lai. It's an extended month, but tomorrow we're not going to announce it as Mekadesh because it's a late month. The Gemara says that is not a raya, because Ma'uber Tzricha Lai. The whole chiddush of that is that we're saying that the month is actually Ma'uber. It's an extended month. So I would have thought that since Bezin and all of Klal Yisrael saw the new moon, if Farsam of Leila Brua, that this is already something that's public, and we're not going to be ma'aber it because everyone really knows that day should be Rosh Chodesh. Kamashmon, the chiddush is that we're going to extend the month because we weren't able to say Mekadesh, and we do not have a riot from there that if it's going to be a late month that we're not going to say Mekadesh. And the Mishnah continues. The most Suras Levana Hayula the Rabbi Gamliel Batavlu Bakaisel Ba'aliyasai. Rabbi Gamliel had different forms of how the moon could look on a tablet on his wall in his room. Shabahen Maras had Yoites. He would show the simple people this tablet. He would show them the different forms of the moon. And he would say, did the moon look like this or did it look like that? These simple people didn't know how to describe how the moon looked, and therefore he would show them these different forms. Did it look like this? Did it look like that? And therefore would make it easy for them to testify. Ask the Gemara, Mishari, is it even permitted for him to have these forms of the moon? The pasuk says, Loi sasin iti, and what do we learn from here? Loi sasun kidmus shamashai. You're not allowed to make like the form of something that serves me, says Hashem. And since the moon is something that serves Hashem, you're not allowed to make a form, you're not allowed to make the image of the moon. So how is it that he even had an image of the moon in his house or in his room? So Amar Rabbi, he answers, Loi asr Torah el shamashin she'ef shalasus kamaisan. The Torah only answered making a form or an image of something that serves Hashem that we could possibly replicate. To the time you have a brisa, Lo yasa adam bayis. A person is not allowed to build a house, tavnis heichal, in a way that it looks like the heichal of the Beis Hamikdash, or
stop there.